DJ EFN.
Yo, what's good? This is Manny Digital, and welcome to another episode of the Fatherhood Podcast. That was all fucked up.
You were doing dribbles and time?
Yo, you saw me, right? You saw me?
Okay. Fucking dick.
Bro. Wow.
Yeah, me.
That's all right. We'll let that slide.
No. We could take two.
You want to make it an episode of Dribbles and Dimes?
Not with you two.
What?
All right. So I got something to start it off with.
Hit us.
My wife and I caught this little news segment a couple days ago. It's about this dude in down south, and he had not sure exactly what transpired, but his daughter was part of a crew of girls who were bullying another girl at school. And I guess the parents of the mom of the girl who was getting bullied knew the dad, and I don't know if the dad's daughter was the main person doing the bullying, but she was obviously involved, and so the mom calls the dad, and so instead of the dad getting all defensive and saying, well, my daughter definitely couldn't have done that, I guess he took a different approach, and he went and investigated it and found out that his daughter was in fact part of doing all this. And what he did is, I guess he had saved up some money that he was going to take his daughter to go shopping. He called the mom of the bullied girl up and said, I'm going to take your daughter on a shopping spree with this money that I've saved up, and my daughter is going to come and help pick out the clothes and help assist with the whole thing.
That's hardcore.
Damn, he's my idol.
So, yeah. I mean, they had
more bullying though.
It was on like one of those. It's a clip, and I wish I could remember the guy's name, but it was a clip online. But they were the dad, the daughter, and then the mom and then her daughter who had been bullied. They were all on one of those morning talk show things where they talked about the whole thing. But I just thought that was pretty interesting, just in terms of you don't really hear that happen, and the fact and really like the mom of the bullied daughter, she was just really taken aback by the fact that the dad didn't come off as defensive and flipped it entirely as a way to teach his daughter, because I guess the dad had been bullied as a kid when he was in school,
right? And
so he wanted to find a way to teach his daughter about not doing that. And so,
what ages are these kids?
They looked like they were probably 13-ish, something like that.
And did they say what the result of it was? Like, what did his daughter learn? Did they know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's hard to they're on like they're in a crowd in a TV show, and obviously the kids are a little bit more shy than the adults, and it was hard to tell like really if the daughter learned anything from it. She probably did, but you could tell like the daughter, the girl that was bullied, she definitely felt good from it.
Oh yeah, she got a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
So did it say anything about how the girl, I guess the bully, like what happens in the context of the bully's world? Like, did they go into that at all?
No, they didn't go too deep, and maybe there's more information out there about it. But again, I don't even know if the daughter who was doing the bullying, if she was the main person doing it. I think she might not have been, but just the fact that she was involved in a group of people doing that, and even if you're playing on the sidelines and laughing, you're still adding to someone else's pain.
Yeah.
All right.
I don't know. It just leads me to, when I think about my son was talking to us the other day, and I guess, I've mentioned to you that he's kind of having a hard time like adjusting to the new school and just going through school in general. And he said something. We were talking about just him trying to learn to use his strong voice when people are bothering him, or not pay attention to it, and just trying to kind of pep him up, like, oh man, you could just use your strong voice, let people know that you're not the one to be messed with, and they won't mess with you anymore, and then you won't have to worry about anything. And he said, yeah, so when I get to second grade, I won't be a loser anymore.
Oh man,
like that. I'm like,
pobrecito, man.
Yeah, I was like, come on, man. Like, and so then it just got my wife and I talking just about the whole idea of school, right?
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of jokes to be made about, people make a lot of jokes about people who are homeschooled and they're not socialized and all that kind of stuff. But then on the flip side, when you really think about it, it's like, what is school, and what are they on the socialization tip? We say, okay, they learn how to deal with other people and all that kind of stuff. But It also feels like when you have a kid in school, it's almost like the socialization that they're learning is all the wrong shit. They're learning all kinds of stuff that you have to.
Or it's a crapshoot of what can come out of it.
Yeah, but it's like they come home from, and it's almost like you having to correct a lot of the bad behavior that they learn from other kids, and it's just like, damn, is it really all that positive, the socialization that because you think about it, kids are assholes to each other.
Yeah, but I'd like to think that school is good, but maybe there's the middle ground where it's like not so much the homeschooling, but maybe finding those special schools that are like smaller classes.
Yeah, I mean, I think, and again, I'm not saying whether or not school is bad or good. It's just when you start hearing about these things, or your son or your kid is feeling issues, and you start thinking back to like, well, did I really like school? Did I like,
I mean, nobody really liked school.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you like different, like you think back at school and then you probably think, okay, there was that, that 1 or 2 year, run that was great. And then everything else is kind of like, I want to forget about that,
Right. But like, did school really prepare me for anything? Like, did the dealing with people you might not have liked, or I don't know.
If anything, it might have like created more tribalism, or like kind of put you on to like, oh, I just want to, like the cliquey stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what you're saying is real. Like maybe it's more negative than it is positive, man.
I don't know. I kind of look at it the other way. Like for me, the way I look at the world and the way I look at what school at the end of the day symbolizes, I look at it as a good training ground, right? For life, generally speaking. I think things have gotten progressively more PC, and therefore there's a lot more focus on things like bullying, for example. But I find it to be, and I don't know, maybe I just have a lot of pent up shit I've never dealt with as a result of my going through school that I don't acknowledge right now. But the reality is I feel like it's taught me, A, to have thicker skin, B, to really know how to manage certain situations outside of what I think I would have normally, like in social circles, right? So like, especially like how to read people. I think that's more like street knowledge though, but it's derived from school, because a lot of the people that I grew up going to school with, I also obviously were on the block with me. So I kind of converge those two worlds. But I think it's all relatively positive for me. But I totally understand. But then the counter to that is like, all right, so what do? You kind of almost running away from the situation by trying to put your kids potentially in different scenarios where you're trying to maybe shelter them from the reality that is inevitable at some point in their life. That's how I look at it.
But it could also be so word I'm looking for, like it could be, each individual may not be built for, like maybe you had brothers and sisters, right?
Brothers? Yeah, one brother, yeah. Well, two brothers actually, yeah.
And close in age?
My younger brother, yeah. We're a year and a half apart.
I would say, that probably people who had siblings that went to school with them, school was probably gonna be easier. Versus a child by, a single child. They're kind of like, they have to rely on friendships, where maybe someone with a sibling, was like, "All right, fuck it, man. I got no friends. I got my brother here. If I got beef, I got my brother here. Or whatever. If I need to ask a question about something I don't know about in school, instead of looking stupid to a friend, I ask my brother or my sister." So I mean, like I said, I think I'm more from the mindset of it is a positive thing because like what you said, life inevitabilities, like you're gonna deal with these issues.
Dickheads everywhere.
Right. Yeah. So you might as well prepare for it, but it is a crapshoot because and especially now it seems like even with all the PC stuff that you think would be positive, it seems like school. Maybe it's just because we're older and we're looking at it differently. It seems more dangerous for some reason because it seems like I almost feel like maybe they're fighting. Maybe they're fighting less. I don't know if they are or they aren't. But it seems like whenever things happen, they're more lethal. But that might just be the hyper, media attention on different things. Because I'm sure that all these things were happening back then, and there was no instantaneous social media or news 24-hour news cycles to report on it. I had a school shooting when I was in junior high. I had a lockdown in my school, in elementary school, because of a bank robbery that came around my school. And nobody, I wasn't on the news. So, I don't know. So, we don't know.
Yeah. I think you raise a really good point. Like, yeah, I agree. I think a lot of this stuff was still happening. Maybe at the same levels as today, possibly. But
yeah,
the
media, I think
the media changes that perspective,
I'm sure. Yes, all that kind of stuff was still happening, but I think today's climate is just it's way more like violent than maybe when we came up in different ways.
Yeah, I think in different ways because I think there was more physical beefs maybe when we were coming up, but that weren't as lethal as today. It seems like they just go straight for the just that's it. Let's just kill people or something like that.
Right. And there's also with just connectivity and social and all that kind of stuff. There's just more time, even when you're not at school, for people to stay on you and
you can't
harass you and all that kind of stuff.
No escape.
Yeah.
It's true. It's relentless.
It's true. Something related. You know how video games are a big culprit or a big place to point here, but like the desensitization, is that a word?
Yeah.
From the last episode.
A desensitization of killing and violence and all that stuff that comes from like these video games. I've noticed it in me personally. Like I remember, I don't know, I might have been 13 where I was still playing video games, but I can remember like the dramatic effect of seeing a murder on television, not actually seeing it, but hearing about somebody dying on television.
Right.
Or even like in a movie, the goriness, even though the effects were far less interesting than they are today, but like I remember the impact being so much greater. And I think 13 isn't super young where these things are like super traumatic, but I compare it maybe, 10 years later and it's like, yeah, okay, yeah, it sucks, but you kind of get past it really quickly. So I think it lends itself to what you just said, which is like you see a higher velocity of murders and people with no real respect for life or care.
Well, you also see real murders happening now because people are filming it and posting it. Media. So
right. So yeah, it makes shit even less. Like people less sensitive to these things.
So Kay, are you saying though that you guys are considering homeschooling?
No, I'm not saying that. I mean, we've tossed it around every now and then, just wondering like if he'd flourish, if he'd be better off, or he likes having his friends, and I think just staying open to different. I never want to be like totally closed-minded on. No, it's got to be this way. I think it's just paying attention to how whether he's thriving or he's not thriving, and I think the frustrating thing about school is that, and I guess this will probably just get worse as he gets older, but it's just like trying to get information about the school day or how he's feeling about it. He's pretty tight-lipped about it, and then it could be like, yeah, everything was fine, and then maybe 2 days later after something happened that he didn't really like, that it builds up, and then he lets it out, and it's like, well, damn, I wish I would have known about this a couple of days ago. And then I think back to myself, like, yeah, I wasn't pretty. I think most kids are probably not super forthcoming with that kind of information.
Yeah,
I think, and just from my personal experience, even having, obviously I have 2 girls, but even having a 3-year-old, I see the girls being more forthcoming, a lot more, a higher percentage of the time than the boy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's necessarily the trend generally, but I think it's a lot harder for us to get solid information out of my son across the board. So I think that might be just an uphill battle that us.
You think it's like a macho thing, like a boy feeling like less manly, crying about something, and being perceived as crying about something?
Nah, my son doesn't really have an issue being emotional. So I don't chalk it up to that. I couldn't tell you for sure. Like for me, when I'm thinking about how he and his behavior affects me and us, me and my wife, I think about also how I am, right? Personally, I kind of self-reflect a little bit, and I'm like, how was I with my mom? How was I with my dad? And I noticed the same trend in me. Like I wasn't very forthcoming about much, and for me, it was more about, you know what? Maybe it is a macho thing, but not in the emotional sense. More like I know what I'm doing.
Yeah. You don't want the parent influence, like oh, just go to the principal, or oh, just do this,
or worry about shit,
or worry. Yeah.
So because like and this is probably not a good thing, but like I felt like most of my life, I felt like, and to this day, I'm not one that really asks for help, and I think that's a problem generally because you're gonna need help at some point,
right?
And all of us do. But with respect to my parental relationship, I felt like I had it. I got it. I understand it better than they might, and I knew more, in my head. So I didn't really share too much because I thought either it would be me worrying them or them not understanding and trying to shut down whatever I'm trying to do.
Right.
Yeah, so, it's almost easier to handle it yourself instead of.
Yeah, it's like just adding more complication to a situation.
Right. But then,
like, that's what you're thinking,
But then if you flip the script and now you're the parent, like you got to do, because all right, me knowing that, right? I have to do.
Hold on, let me interrupt you real quick. Do you think you were thinking like that at 7 or 8? Because I can't remember that far. But like trying to remember that far back. Like I don't know what I was thinking when I was 7.
I think I was thinking more about not worrying at that age. Definitely. Whether or not I thought I knew better.
Not having them worry?
Yeah. Right.
Right.
Not necessarily that I thought I knew better. I can't remember that, but I do remember certain instances where I would like withhold information because I didn't want them to worry.
Got it. I'm trying to think about I remember I was like, sometimes I would divulge stuff, but only if it benefited me to have my mom feel sorry for me.
Conniving!
And that's what I would do.
Dick. Yeah, nothing's changed, bro.
I tended not to divulge much but I would be kind of like my son, where after a while it might build up, and then I'd have to talk about it at some point, depending on what it was. But for the most part, I didn't really want to talk about much or give too much information, because it's almost like then after a while it becomes too many questions, right? It's like you open the door to let someone in a little bit, and then it's just like too much, and then you just want to shut. You don't want to continue on.
Yeah, you regret it. But generally speaking, you are quiet as kept until the Remy's in the system. Like that's been my experience with you.
Yeah, pretty much.
So I mean, I guess that's for you. You wanting your son to be more open with you, knowing, again, assuming that the lineage kind of carries over, you kind of have to figure out, all right, how do I, given that you're not that type of person that's really sharing, maybe
like you have to reverse engineer yourself.
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, I'm sure in your family dynamic it's different than in the general public, but even still, you probably have to go a little bit further out there to make your son see, oh shit, this is probably something I should do, or it's okay to do.
Yeah, definitely try to be mindful of being communicating and trying to share more info, so that, because he's basically, they're copycats when they're like that. So
Yeah.
if we can, when they're young, if we can get him to copy some of that behavior, or being able to share, or at least getting him to understand, like, all right, when you're at school, maybe you don't feel like breaking down, or you're just going to hold it in, or deal with however you're going to deal with it. But letting him understand, like, well, when you get home is your safe zone. So you should be able to drop whatever kind of hard exterior you've got, or and feel comfortable to say whatever is going on. So that's been kind of the mission.
We can't underestimate the influence of peer pressure in the situation too, because if I'm a kid bullying another kid, I'm pretty damn sure that kid, anticipating this kid that he's bullying, might go and tell the parents. Parents might get them in trouble. We'll be like, like, oh, you gonna tell your parent now? If you tell your parent, then you're this, you're that, you're a wuss, you're this,
Yeah.
trying to scare them to even tell the parents. So then that kid's like, I don't want to make this worse by, maybe telling my parents, and what could happen. So I could see that being a big issue as well.
Yeah, no, you're right. And that's kind of one of my fears, is like, because that is a very real, influence on these kids, and to some degree, I think I know it sounds kind of crazy, but I think it's a little bit healthy for them to have to kind of experience it mildly, because
right, but we can't control the mildness.
No,
of
I
it.
know. That's what I'm saying. So generally, I look at that as a negative because of that, but.
Right.
But it's also, you can't control it. So, like, you can only do but so much to try to create that comfort zone, and then hopefully it works itself out.
Yeah, we have to create the comfort zone, but then you also have to create you gotta create that self-confidence and that self-reliance, so that when they're not in the comfort zone, that to really get them to understand that what any other kid says or does doesn't mean anything, right? It shouldn't affect you, and got to learn to kind of roll with it and not let it bother you, and almost being comfortable being you, and being comfortable, like, hey, if no one likes you, then that's okay too. Like, you can go off and do your own thing, no problem. And it's not that he's having that problem, but I'm trying to explain to him over and over again, like, look, man, it's great to have friends. You don't need everyone to like you. You don't, you only need a couple close friends, and even if you didn't have that, if you're able to figure out how to be comfortable with yourself and move on, follow your own path and move on your own, and let people know that you're not afraid of them, and you're not going to be messed with, then you'll have a much easier time navigating all this stuff. But easier said than done.
Yeah, I was going to say the unfortunate thing is that world to them is such a big deal.
Yeah, I know.
And all you're telling them, it's the effects are difficult to gauge how much, because they'll just be like, yeah, great story, Dad. Like,
I know, because because to them it's like it's fucking enormous.
Yeah, they're like, I'm gonna build all this confidence, and I'm gonna be, let's just create a new fatherhood product. It's the Iron Man suit for children, right. And it deflects all this negative stuff, and nobody could hurt them, and it's bulletproof in case there's a school shooting or anything like that.
Yeah. Available on fatherhoodspod.com.
There's Iron Man and Iron Woman. We'll create both.
Oh, man. There's a lot of thinking on this episode.
Oh, man.
My brain's tired.
I'm going to have to start reverse engineering myself now before my son comes.
Yeah.
Because that's going to be tough.
Well, boys, it's been a real pleasure, but I got to run.
All right.
Let's
do it.
Peace.
Later, fellas.